Hurricane Ian's impact is now being felt in the Carolinas, but for those in Florida, the recovery process will be long.
You know, events like these you don't think can happen to you.
People facing medical challenges are often left out of emergency plans. Hurricane Ian is bringing attention to this. The work being done now to have new assistance available in the future. And damage from potholes cost all of us a combined tens of billions of dollars a year. The new technology rolling out to help better detect potholes and prevent those costly repairs.
Plus, a Metro church that feeds 500 families a week has fallen victim to theft, and they hope you can help get their mission back on track.
I just can't imagine why someone would do that.
And we begin at 4 with a live look at Charlotte, North Carolina, where Ian's impacts are currently being felt. Within the past hour, Ian has been downgraded to a post-tropical cyclone. Thank you for joining us at 4. I'm Micah Smith. Ian made landfall as a Category 1 hurricane in South Carolina earlier today. It is expected to bring heavy rains to much of the East Coast. In Florida, residents are still coming to terms with losing everything. With the latest on efforts there, here's CNN's Gloria Panzmio in Fort Myers.
We've heard from the local fire chief here in Fort Myers, who told us he is confident that all rescues here have been completed. More than 200 rescues over the last several hours, and now the cleanup begins. And I want to give you an idea of what things look like here. Just beyond that pile of boats you see there is the river, and that river washes out to the Gulf of Mexico. And it was the Gulf of Mexico that pushed all of these massive boats out here towards Fort Myers as Hurricane Ian made its destructive path across Florida.
Ian has moved on from southwest Florida, but the aftermath is overwhelming.
Those lots right there, those were homes, those were hotels, those were real property.
And response in hard-hit areas like Fort Myers still in overdrive.
Right now our focus is we've got to get the electricity down, especially for our water plants and our wells.
2 days after the storm slammed the coast as a powerful Category 4 storm, millions of Floridians remain in the dark, and residents are still in shock. Their homes and businesses destroyed.
It's surreal. I mean, you know, events like these you don't think can happen to you.
For southwest counties like Lee, Collier, and Charlotte, the scope of the devastation is yet to be determined.
This is a very long process now because they're basically going street to street, home by home.
And off the coast, aerial views show Sanibel Island's shorefront cottages wiped away, their roofs torn off. Meanwhile, in northern and central parts of Florida, flooding is a big concern. With impact statewide, Ian is likely the largest natural disaster in Florida's history.
We know that there's a lot of difficult days ahead.
And as Ian moved north, the Carolinas, coastal areas like Myrtle Beach and Charleston did their best to prepare for the unpredictable.
And right now, things are just about getting the basics. Much of Fort Myers remains without power. Officials here working to get everyone here food and water. Reporting from Fort Myers, Gloria Pasmino.
Search and rescue is a big part of what's going on today around the Fort Myers, Naples, and Sanibel areas following Hurricane Ian. Cleanup is going to take months.
Whatever it takes, we're going to be there as one nation and one America. We're not going to walk away.
That's President Biden's message today. Much of the recovery following Hurricane Ian will happen at the local and state level. But a crucial part of the effort does come from Washington, D.C. Joe St. George has a closer look at what role the president plays when it comes to hurricane responses.
When it comes to the federal response to hurricanes, it may look like on TV that everything's happening at the White House or at the Capitol, but in reality, FEMA is making their decisions here at this nondescript office building about a mile south of the National Mall. The federal response, though, goes well beyond supplying generators and water. it's about optics, too.
When you're coordinating all these institutions.
Those optics include the president getting a briefing on the hurricane, not from the Oval Office or the Situation Room, but from FEMA headquarters, a place where more key staffers work should an important question or issue arise. Make no mistake, though, the most important thing the federal government can do when it comes to hurricanes is approving something known as a disaster declaration. This is the form Governor DeSantis had to fill out to get one declared. President Biden did that on Thursday. A disaster declaration allows federal funding to begin to flow to local and state governments. It also creates assistance for residents who live in the most impacted areas. For instance, this could include grants for temporary housing and home repairs or low-cost loans to cover uninsured property losses. With that now approved, a big part of the federal response will be listening and responding to concerns from local leaders. It's why the White House is quick to report any phone calls the president has had with the governor of Florida or mayors. This week, President Biden faced criticism in Puerto Rico by local leaders for not waiving a shipping law so that fuel from a non-American ship could reach the island sooner. That criticism eventually prompted the president to issue the waiver so the island could continue their recovery from Hurricane Fiona. Of course, now one of the most important duties for the federal government is comforting those impacted. An official presidential visit to Florida is expected to take place eventually, although typically presidents wait until all the rescues have taken place. A presidential motorcade requires hundreds of first responders, and right now helping people is a greater priority. To some degree, the federal government and FEMA's most important tasks are still ahead. In many cases, FEMA stays with communities years after a hurricane strikes. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
And you can help those impacted by Ian. Denver 7 Gives is partnering with the Scripps Howard Fund for hurricane relief. To donate, text STORM to 50155 and follow the prompts. You can also scan that QR code on your screen or visit denver7.com/hurricane relief. Members of a church in Aurora would normally be on their way to help with disaster relief, but the van they used for those trips was stolen this week. This is the van, which was found without a catalytic converter, among other problems. The repairs to the van are expected to cost about $10,000. Peace with Christ has used the van for years, taking it all around the country after disasters like Hurricane Katrina or Harvey. The church, which is also a school, takes students on these trips and says it empowers them knowing they can make a difference.
It's a huge lift when there's a disaster. And what we've taught our students is you get to be a part of that lift.
It's given me a chance to actually be able to be firsthand in changing other people's lives as well as changing my life.
A GoFundMe has been started to try and raise money for the repairs needed. 2 Metro men have been arrested for 2 separate incidents of child sex assault. In both cases, police think there may be more victims out there. 64-year-old Leopoldo Zapata Valdenegro is facing multiple child sex assault charges in Adams County. Aurora police arrested him on the 21st. Through a lengthy investigation, the 17th Judicial District Attorney's Office found multiple children who they say were victims. They fear more victims may be out there, dating back 10 years or more. And in Parker, police arrested the owner of Strength in Christ Athletes on child sex assault charges. 48-year-old Aaron Corrado owns the gym near 20 Mile Road and Main Street in Parker. His gym was formerly in Centennial. Police want to hear from you if you were also a victim.
All right, topping the news feed, the federal government is hitting Russia with more sanctions today in response to Vladimir Putin annexing 4 occupied territories in Ukraine. This makes the biggest land grab in Europe since World War II. And this is in defiance of international law. Today's new sanctions are on more than 1,000 people and firms connected to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson officially took her place on the Supreme Court today. She's been on the job since late June, but today's investiture ceremony marked the first time she took her place on the bench. The court's new term begins Monday. Things on the docket include affirmative action, immigration, and a case about whether businesses may deny services for same-sex weddings. Americans spent more in August than in the previous month. The new numbers out today are a sign the economy is holding up, even as inflation impacts prices for food, rent, and other essentials. The Commerce Department says people spent more in stores and for services like haircuts. We're getting new information about how student loan forgiveness is going to work, how people who have continued to make payments during the pause could get some of that money back.
Beer is the drink of choice in Denver this week. We look at the events taking place for Denver Beer Week and how the state's industry has rebounded from the pandemic.